Always try to be nice, but never fail to be kind. Hello guys, welcome back to New Who HQ, and today I am going to talk about the Peter Capaldi era, the 12th Doctor's era, because I think it's such an interesting one that a lot of people have been engaging in recently. I've been seeing a lot more around sort of social media, but also it's one that I have a lot of interest in takes on, which I'd like to share with you as well. Opening thoughts about this is that this is a very, very good era. Now this era ran from Series 8 until Series 10, so it's in between Matt Smith and Jodie Whittaker. And yes, Heaven Sent. Look, I can't do a Capaldi video and not mention Heaven Sent. I'm not going to go on about it too much, but I just want to quickly touch upon that episode give it its own little shout out, and that, you know, it's going through a time where he's just lost Clara and he is quite, he's quite depressed. And this episode has a lot of a very deep meaning, and even though it has good moments and, funny moments, and it's still very much Doctor Who, this does feel like a place where we know it can go, but doesn't always. Quite rare, but when it does, it's done beautifully. And again, Capaldi really uses his speech strength in this episode, where he basically carries the whole thing. It's more or less him for the whole entire episode, and the journey we go on with him, it's beautiful. And no wonder it was voted, I believe it was voted the best episode of New Who, which is up for debate. I'm not debating that today, but I could argue, I'd happily admit that it's one of the best around. Now, every single Doctor has their sort of, lumps and bumps in their era, and going back to Series 8 where it all began for Capaldi, I actually think it's a very strong season for something which a lot of people generally feel like it's a little bit bumpy. I love his character, which I've heard as a fan theory for quite some time, but basically everything that the Doctor went through in the past incarnation has something to do with the new one, and with the old one it was Matt Smith going through Trenzalore and growing old, not wanting to lose anybody else because of the amount of people he lost, to come into Capaldi and into this incarnation. He's someone that didn't want to lose anyone, but this was someone that was kept himself to himself. He wouldn't share his feelings, he was pushed people away, he was generally quite a stuck-up, mean person, which I think for Capaldi fitted in very, very well. But he still had this sort of thing where Clara couldn't see him for who he used to be, and he got into his mind, am I a good man? Am I a bad man? I'm just an idiot. His speech and his one-liners and how he sees the world in such a more philosophical, darker, deeper way is so interesting to watch on the screen. The dynamic between him and Clara is so different to how Clara and Smith was. And even though I did like Clara and Smith, thing is that the problems of Clara are very, very separate to the era of Capaldi. But for Series 8, I really do like her, and she challenges the Doctor on certain decisions that he makes, which are not good. We don't know if he kills that man in Deep Breath. The whole kill the moon situation with, I'll let you make your own decision and I'm just going to go. This is a very different thing for the audience to try and deal with here, and as I said, as much as Capaldi plays it very well, I can see why the audience weren't so keen on him because of these decisions that were being made for him. And I don't think it's nothing to do with bad writing. It was, Moffat was writing him in a certain way, and the way they were doing it was great. I liked the different take. It was different from Smith. How he was with Clara in Season 9, or maybe even late Series 8, was starting to grind. It was starting to get a little bit annoying. Generally, Clara was starting to grind on my gears a little bit, because it felt like she was blaming the Doctor for absolutely everything, to the point where in some circumstances she was a hypocrite for certain things. And Clara's character changed massively, and that is done down to some of the writing and obviously introducing her as the Impossible Girl arc, but that doesn't take anything away from Capaldi's era, and what they do together is pretty good. But I think the reason why Heaven Sent is so good is because of what happened in Face the Raven. And then you come into Series 10 where he's defending Bill when there's a racist, in front of him. In Series 8, where the Doctor have just walked away, left it, they've just gone, brushed it away, So I think with me, how I feel about his development, which is the most successful part of his era, is it never feels doesn't feel forced with him. And that's not, you know, that does happen quite a bit, where you feel like it in certain, you know, not just in Doctor Who, but certain franchises, certain things will happen on purpose, or they'll feel like they're happening. Anything happens on purpose because it's a show, but it felt on purpose, it felt forced, and yes, that, you know, that does help the development of the character, but it's like, oh yeah, this happened, and it doesn't really fit together. With Capaldi, the events that happen, they work together and it makes sense. It's like, okay, this happened because of this, and I get it because of the events happening, and Clara had a big thing to do with that. The thing with Missy as well, you know, Missy, near the end of his era, is actually trying to help him and become a better person, but the older version of Missy, you know, John Sim, wasn't having it. So I saw a funny thing where the longer that Capaldi's hair gets, the nicer he becomes, which I kind of do agree on. I kind of see where that's coming from, but it never feels forced, and at the end he feels like a soft old man, even though he's a little bit hesitant to regenerate. You see the journey, and for me, I think it's great. His actual era of, you know, the actual episodes within the series, I mean, as I said, there are some weak ones, but overall I think they're 3 pretty strong seasons. I ranked them, okay, maybe I didn't rank them as high as I did when I did my ranking, but I think Capaldi's the sort of person, when I first viewed him, when I first viewed this whole era, not just one series, I didn't quite understand what I was getting from him, or sort of what I was trying to connect with him and like with him in a way that I just didn't really see a way in which I would like him. But I've watched his era over about 4 or 5 times now over the years, and I've now learnt to appreciate and understand why he is how he is, with the history of the Doctor, trying to become a better person throughout his tenure. So I feel like it's such a quite morbid version of the Doctor, which actually I didn't think I would like as much as I do now, looking back on it. So yeah, I think those are my views. I think this is one of the best incarnations ever, but let me know what your thoughts are, because I'm very interested to learn about people's views on this incarnation. And I'm not going to go deep into certain aspects. I think better YouTubers do that. I'm just giving you an overall thought of what I think is quite a, you know, success and what should be celebrated from what he brought. But him as an actor, what he brought to the power and what Moffat brought were 2 different things, but they worked together so very well. And as I said, if David Tennant or Matt Smith were in, you know, this era and Moffat gave these speeches and this sort of vibe, I don't think it would have played off as well. So you had to make sure, if you're going to write this type of Doctor and you get this type of feel for the show, you have to make sure we've got the right person behind it, and Capaldi really does. But let me know your thoughts on the comments. If you're new, please subscribe, give this video a like. So never be cruel, never be cowardly, and never ever eat pears.